When we're talking about cybersecurity threat landscape, we are referring to the various type of cyber threats and their sources. The potential impact they can have on an organization and individuals. This is constantly changing as new threats emerge and old ones adapt. So the threat landscape is simply talking about what is happening in the area of cybersecurity. What are the threats? What are the hacks? What are the impacts? How does it affect the organization? How do these threats come? Who are the people who perpetrate these cybersecurity threats? I mean, who are the guys behind these hackers? What are they called? How do you categorize these hackers? How do you categorize them? How do you uh, understand them? So basically, this is the cybersecurity threat landscape. And like I said, it is evolving. The landscape is changing every time because new technologies are coming out. So the threats are changing too. Like social engineering, for instance, social engineering keeps evolving. There was a time it's only SMS that we have. So there was a time now we have video messages going on very well. So all these new ways of communication as they are coming up, hackers are also latching onto them and using them to perpetrate their crimes. So when we're talking about the landscape, so there are different types of cyber threats. We're going to look at types of cyber threats. So we have malware, we have phishing, we have denial of service attacks. And malware is simply these are malicious software. Malwares are malicious software that are designed to damage or disrupt or gain access, unauthorized access to systems. So remember, when you have unauthorized access, you are breaking both two things at the same time. You are breaking confidentiality and integrity, of systems. So an example is ransomware. Ransomware is common and it's very terrible. It's very bad because ransomware is that one that they sent a file, they sent a program into your system, and they enter your system. When they enter, it encrypts all your files, and when you encrypt all your files, it means you cannot have access to it, and then they will tell you to make payment. And even when you pay, you are not guaranteed that they will still even release those files because sometimes the intention is not to make money. The intention is to just cause, to deny you have access, to break that availability, making sure your data is not available to you for use. So ransomware is a very terrible one, and people, organizations have suffered a lot from this ransomware. So these are examples of malware. Another type of cyber threat is phishing. Phishing is a deceptive attempt to obtain information, sensitive information. They pretend to be someone that is trustworthy. For example, you can see an email that looks like it's coming from someone that you know as or an authorized body, but it's a lie. If you look at it, they will tell you, for instance, that there's something going on that you urgently need to keep attention to, and then because you need to do it urgently, you need to make payments or you need to provide some information, that are supposed to be private to you. These are phishing emails. You know, they are asking you for your login credentials. They are putting pressure on you. There are ways to identify these things, which we will still, talk about later. Then another popular type of cyber threat is denial of service, the DOS, attacks. So this one is attacking the availability. So, denial of service is basically making sure that you don't have access to what is yours, or a system that is yours. So you can imagine that you have a shop, you are selling something in a shop, and there is only one, and the shop is meant to, have only one door, or let me say only one access or one window through which you communicate with the person inside. So you can imagine those places those places where you are going to make payments after doing something, and then you are going to be speaking to someone through the window. So imagine you have a situation like that, and you need information from the person inside, and then some three or four persons now crowded the front of the window where you are supposed to be speaking through to someone. So they are denying you access to the service of the person inside. So that's the way denial of service works. So denial of service uses the computers to flood your systems with messages that are not yours. So they will send in traffic to your site. For instance, maybe you have a website, and then a website that is supposed to handle like maybe 100 people at a time. Only 100 people should be viewing the website at a time. Then they now said like 10,000 persons will be viewing your website at the end. Definitely that website will crash. So that's the denial of service attack. You know, that's example of cyber threat. Another type of cyber threat is SQL injection. See, these are for people who are into application, security. So, SQL is basically exploiting vulnerability in a web application by inserting malicious SQL queries. So, SQL is talking about people who have database. It's common with things like maybe bank where you are filling a form, or online application whereby you need to fill a form and request for information. You query, you fill in a detail, and then you click search, and then it brings out information for you. So they use SQL tables to prepare those information in the back end, and then when you query the information, the SQL table will provide the information for you. So SQL injection is now, some people now craft ways of sending queries that are malicious. The intention is to exploit a fault or a vulnerability inside the application that is bringing out those data for you. So an example of SQL injection, uh, is an example of cyber threats. Another example of cyber threat is advanced persistent threats. These are threats that are long-term threats. They are targeted, you know, they are not intended to be detected for a long period, and these are usually uh, threats to governments, institutions. These are usually carried out by government. When you hear that China is attacking US, or US is doing something against China, so they can be in your system. For instance, China might be monitoring what is going on in China, or China or US monitoring what's going on in China, either ways, or any country, whatever, for years. A good example of it is when for people who buy Chinese devices, Chinese maybe gadgets, communication gadgets, and you will hear the story that don't buy that, somebody is monitoring. Anytime you are chatting or you are calling, that somebody is monitoring it. So sometimes, I know it takes a lot. It's for you to set up a mobile device, a mobile phone company that will be making mobile phones, and then you're now inserting codes into those phones. You must be someone that is big, for you to set up a manufacturing company with the intention of putting codes inside it that will be, spying on people. Those are persistent threats. You can be using your phone for 5 years and you don't know that something is running behind. Those are advanced persistent threats. They are usually carried out by, institutions and organizations, people, nation state actors, people with big pockets. Then we have another type of cyber threat that we call man in the middle attacks. So man in the middle attacks is basically interception of communication between two parties. That is, when you carry your phone and you are trying to uh, call someone like in the office, I want to discuss business, and somebody is tapping into your conversation without you knowing. So you think you are talking to someone, but there's somebody in between who is listening to what you are saying and the person's response. In fact, sometimes they will take your information that you have said, they will download it, and then they will send the information to person. So they are in the middle. So it's called man in the middle attack. So interception of communication. This is a very common attack. It happens a lot of times, especially for people who use public Wi-Fi or public infrastructure. People who are listening to your conversations. It happens a lot. Now we have sources of cyber threats.